So today we have MLB 477, July the 7th, and we're going to start with the Tampa Bay Rays versus the Detroit Lions. As you can see, the odds are on the screen. Money line minus 130 for the Rays. The Tigers are at plus 110 as a dog. The spread looks like this, minus 1.5 naturally for the run line, also known as the run line for baseball. Minus 1.5 at plus 132 cost, plus 1.5 for Detroit at minus 160 cost. Total is at 9, over under. Over is at minus 105 cost, under is at minus 115. All right, let's go over where the money is going. Not a huge favorite are the Rays in this one, but we always focus on the higher negative, whether it's the money line or the spread. And normally it's the spread in baseball. As you can see, it is minus 160 for the Detroit Lions, the underdog. Lions, Tigers, that is. Minus 160 for the underdog Tigers. Let's see where the money is going. All right, 42% betting going with the Tampa Bay Rays. 26% of the money going in favor of the Rays. 58% of the money on the money line in favor of the Tigers. 74% of the money in favor on the money line in favor of the Tigers. The spread has come and gone. As you can see here, they cannot settle on a percentage at the moment, but this is early in the morning. That will change. But we're going to jump to the total, the over under at 9. 79% of the betting is at on the total is at 79. On the over, that is 64% of the money is going over 9. 21% of the betting is going under 9, and 36% of the money is going under 9 on the total. But as you can see, 74% in favor of Detroit in this one, 58% of the betting. So they are getting most of the money at the moment, are the underdog Tigers. Now, the only way I see this could be one of those situations where the Tigers could get this across the board, and this plus 110 is an indicator of that. The plus 110s in baseball or football in particular, and sometimes basketball as well, hit more so than when compared to the minus 130. But that's only if this holds up by the game time. If some, obviously it's going to fluctuate. The odds are going to fluctuate. This is still early in the morning on the 7th. And they are getting 74% of the money. Yes, 74% of the money, 26%. Not many in favor of the Rays on the road. But the Tigers could definitely get this run line. It's minus 160. It is above that minus 150 threshold. Keep that in mind. As far as the over-under, the minus 105s hit more than the minus 115s normally. And I would, which way is the public going? The over, I would go over that 9. I would stay over only if you see this drop to about 8. If you see this drop to about 8, even less than 8.5, around 8, then I would go to under and test those odds. But as it currently stands, I would go over that 9 at that minus 105 cost. Let's go to the next one. All right, Miami versus Cincinnati. Plus 116 for Miami as a dog on the money line. Minus 136 are the Reds on the money line. Plus 1.5 at minus 172 cost are the Marlins on the run line. Minus 1.5 at plus 142 are the Reds on the run line. Over under is at 9.5, relatively high at plus 104. Under is at 9.5 at minus 128. Now, you rarely catch totals this amount. The under is getting minus 128. That is a very, very high total. And if this stays at 9.5, naturally most people are going to bet that under. But let's see where it is currently. And we're going to focus on this minus 172 for Miami on the road on the run line. But as you can see, Miami is getting 29% of the betting on the money line, 28% of the money on the money line, 71% of the betting on the money line, 72% of the money on the money line. The spread looks like this, 24% of the betting going with Miami on the run line, 32% of the money going with Miami on the run line, 76% of the betting going with Cincinnati on the run line, 68% of the money going with Cincinnati on the run line. Over under Looks like this. They have it at 9.5. They bumped it up to 9.5. 53% of the betting going over. 71% of the money going over. 47% of the betting going under. And 29% of the money going under. Now, all of these percentages are based off global sportsbook averages. It averages out all of the relevant sportsbook affiliates and aggregates, and it averages out that data. And this is how we get these percentages at the moment. All right, let's see. 72% in favor of Cincinnati at home, and 68% in favor of them, of the money on the run line. This could be one of those situations where Cincinnati gets the money line and Miami gets that run line, minus 172 right here, which looks highly likely. This minus 172 is a lot to miss out on. But this could be one of those situations, a lot like this last game here, where Miami could go down to plus 110 and Cincinnati's money line could go down to minus 130. And if that is the case, take Miami across the board. But as it currently stands, I will go with Cincy on the money line, and the spread, I'm going with the Marlins. Over under, you kind of want to test that over 9.5. But this minus 128 is very unique and enticing. So, and you rarely get this in baseball on a total that costs minus 128, and it's getting 29% of the money. The only way I would go under in this one is if these odds go down to 8.5 or less. 8.5 or less, and this 29% turns into about, let's say 38, 40, 42%, somewhere there, or higher. That's the only way I would go under. But as it currently stands, you have to test that over 9.5. But let's go to the next one. Colorado versus Boston. All right, plus 198. Plus 198 for Colorado, minus 240 for Boston. On the money line, that is. Plus 1.5 for Colorado on the run line at plus 100. Minus 1.5 at minus 120 cost for Boston on the spread. Over under is at 9.5 at minus 115 going over, minus 105 going under. And let's see where the money is going here. That minus 240 is very, very, very. I mean, you you kind of want to just avoid picking this game unless you're going with the underdog. Rockies, that is, one of the worst teams in the MLB. But the totals have been very high the first three games. This is 9.5 total. But let's see where the money is going. All right, 9% in favor of Colorado and 5% in favor of Colorado on the money. 91% of the betting for Boston. 95% for Boston on the money line. 90 and 92 in favor of Boston in this one. 90% of the betting, 92% of the money. And over is getting 81% of the betting and 86% of the money. All right, so the over is dominating and Boston is dominating in this one. Alrighty, over 9.5, you have to challenge that over-under at that minus 115 cost, but it's difficult to go against this minus 105 when it hits at such a higher rate than the minus 115s on the totals. But I would still challenge that over 9.5 and join the public in that one. In this case, you want to challenge these odds since Boston is major favorite in this one. But it's so difficult to go with the Rockies, though. It really is. It's very difficult. But what I'm seeing here with this plus 100 even right here, literally no value. Then you have this, the plus 198s. It all depends on these kind of games what the sharps do. The sharps are the heavy bettors that bet heavily and they bet late, which is why I recommend all of you on the Patreon bet late. But this plus 198 here is very difficult to go against. Very difficult to go against. Especially when I see this plus 100, which has no value, which means Vegas and the bookies get all of the money on this run line if it holds up. But this plus 198, I want to test this. You want to avoid major home favorites, and minus 240 is a major home favorite in baseball. To this minus 120 here as well. But watch how the Colorado odds adjust with this plus 100 and plus 198. If you see it go to plus 200, over plus 200, you definitely want to put some money on the Rockies in this one, especially if these numbers hold up, which it won't, because the heavy bettors are going to put money on Colorado. If you see that happening late, switch your pick to Boston across the board. But as it currently stands, especially with that plus 100 spread for Colorado, go with Colorado and take that risk. Home favorites, major home favorites are always risky. Remember that. Major home favorites are risky. Let's scroll down a bit. Let's go to the next one. All right, Dodgers versus the Brewers. Minus 144 for the Dodgers, plus 122 for Milwaukee. Spread looks like this. Minus 1.5 for the Dodgers at plus 118 cost. The Brewers are at plus 1.5 at minus 142 cost. Over under is at 7.5 at minus 120 cost. Under is at 7.5 at minus 102 costs. Now, 120's hit a little more, about 56, 57%, maybe even 58, 42%, than compared to the minus 102s on the totals in baseball traditionally. But let's see where this is going here. All right, minus 144. If it's some rocking, y'all, just move the computer a little bit. But minus 144 cost for the Dodgers at that plus 122 for Milwaukee. Let's see where the money is going. Scroll down. All right, 75% of the betting in favor of the Dodgers, 64% of the money in favor of the Dodgers on the money line. Top of your screen, 71% of the spread in favor of the Dodgers at 80, and 81% of the money in favor of the Dodgers on the spread. Over under looks like this, 7.5, 82% of the betting going over, 77% of the money going over. So basically the top is dominating in this one across the board. But this minus 142, if you see that approach anywhere toward that minus 150, go with Milwaukee on the spread. I'm going to tell you that now. Minus 145, minus 148, minus 150 plus, go with Milwaukee on the run line. Now, the Dodgers on the road, minus 144, not major favorites. Plus 122 are the Brewers. Now, let's see where the money is going. 64% of the money. That can change. I believe this is going to even out a little bit. This is going to be around 53, 54% to about 46%, 47% in favor of the Brewers in this one. So, hold on, let's see. All right, 64%, minus 144. The only way I would recommend going with Milwaukee across the board is if their odds go down to about plus 116, plus 114, something like that, and the Dodgers go down to minus 136, minus 138, something like that. But as it currently stands, I would go with Dodgers on the money line, Brewers on the run line, and I would go with that under. I would challenge that 7.5 at minus 102 cost and go with that under. At that minus 102. Yeah, let's do that. All right, Pittsburgh versus Kansas City. Plus 126 for Pittsburgh, minus 148 for the Royals on the money line, that is. Plus 1.5 run line at 164, minus 164 cost, minus 136, minus 1.5 at plus 136 for the Royals on the run line. So we're going to focus on this minus 164 for Pittsburgh. Over under is at 8.5 at minus 115 cost. Under is at 8.5 at minus 105 cost. All right, let's see where the money is going. All right, with Kansas City getting, look at this, 75% of the money, 89% of the money on the run line, and the over-unders are just about even, 55-45, 45-55, over-under. I would definitely consider going with Kansas City. Definitely they're approaching that minus 150. I would go with Kansas City. The only way I would go with Pittsburgh on the money line is if Kansas City's line goes lower. If their line continues to go lower, even though these odds go lower, then go with Pittsburgh across the board. But I would challenge this run line and go with, fade the public and go with Pittsburgh on the run line. Kansas City on the money line. And that over under, I would go with that under 8.5 at minus 105 cost. All right, Toronto versus Chicago, minus 184 for Toronto, plus 154 for Chicago. Minus 1.5 at minus 111 cost on the run line for the Blue Jays. White Sox are at plus 1.5 at minus 108 cost on the run line. Over under is at 8.5. Over is getting minus 112 cost. Under is getting minus 108 cost. All right, let's see where the money is going in this one. Toronto is above that minus 150 threshold in their respective direction. And Chicago is above that minus 150 threshold in their respective direction. Plus 154 and minus 184. 95% in favor of Toronto on the road. 91% of the run line in favor of Toronto. And the over-under, over is dominating at 74% of the betting and 72% of the money. So, Toronto dominating the sportsbook averages, the splits, that is. And I would actually join the public in this one and go with the Blue Jays across the board on the road. Only if this changes, and it will. Toronto probably going to go down to about 80% on the money line, on the money that is, and about the same thing with the spread, maybe about 77%, 76% here. It's going to go down, but you want to go with the Blue Jays on the road. They're above that minus 150 threshold, baseball threshold for the baseball odds. You want to keep that in mind. Over under is at 8.5, minus 112, over minus 108 under. Let's see. I would actually join the public and go with the over in that one. 72% of the money going in that direction. Yeah, I would join the public and go with that minus 112, which hits more so about a 60-40 chance if that minus 112 holds up. Now, it could flip-flop. The under could get the minus 112 and the over could get the minus 108 by game time, by the opening pitch. But let's stick with where we are now. Minus 112 over, go with that. All right, Cleveland versus Houston. Plus 134 for Cleveland, minus 158 for Houston. Minus 162 cost for Cleveland at plus 1.5 spread. Minus 1.5 at plus 134 cost for Houston. Over under is at 7.5 at plus 100. Under is at 7.5 at minus 122. All right, where are we at in this one? Let's see, the under is getting 7.5. I would challenge that under. Let's see where the money is going though. That minus 122 cost looks really, really, really good right now. Let's scroll down. Yeah, I would fade the public on this total and go with that 22% of the money at that minus 122 cost. Now, as you can see, Houston is getting 90% of the money on the spread, 74% of the money on the money line, 86% of the betting on the money line, and 91% of the betting on the run line. Let's see where we are in this one. That minus 162 is too enticing for Cleveland right there. That's too enticing. Houston looks like they could be a decent pick at home. That plus 134 for Houston at 90% of the money. I doubt they're going to want to pay that. If that 90, they're not going to want to pay that out. 90% at plus 134, that cost is good. If you're going to go with Houston on the run line, that cost is going to have to decrease to about plus 124 or less. Maybe plus 122 or less. But this 162 is too enticing to not pick. They're putting that there for a reason. And when the sharps go in, they're going to bet heavily on what's not being picked. That's what they do. But normally it's with a dog, not a favorite. But I would go with Cleveland on the run line, Houston at home on the ML, and challenge that under 7.5 total. All right, next one. Let me scroll down a bit. All right, scroll back up a little bit. All right, Texas versus LA Angels, minus 154 for the Rangers on the road. LA Angels at plus 130. Spread is at minus 1.5 at plus 116 cost. LA Angels at plus 1.5 at minus 140. They're approaching that minus 150 threshold. Over-unders at 7.5 at minus 110 cost even. All right, let's see where the money is going in this one. Rangers on the road, minus 154 favorites. 79% of the money line of the money going in favor of the Rangers. 21% going in favor of the Angels. 61% of the money in favor of the Rangers on the run line. 69% of the betting in favor of the Rangers on the run line, on the betting. Over-unders at 7.5. 67% of the betting in favor of the Rangers. 60% of the money in favor of the Rangers. In favor of the over, that is. In favor of the over. 67% of the betting in favor of the over. 60% of the money in favor of the over. 7.5. Now, I would actually, these 7.5s, you want to challenge those unders. If it wasn't so, it's 40%. That's relatively high for an under 7.5. But this is all about where it adjusts. Okay, minus 110 cost. We're going to start with the total. Minus 110 cost. If you see any one of these costs go above this minus 110, above it, pick that number. Pick that over or under. Whichever one goes to minus 112, minus 114, minus 115, minus 118, something like that, go with that pick. Either one. As it currently stands, I'm going with the under 7.5. Only as it currently stands. But I'm enticed to go with that over. I'm enticed to go with that over 7.5. Minus 154 on the road. Let's see for the Rangers, 79%. As it currently stands, I will go with the Rangers across the board. And basically, I would join the public with the Rangers. Join the public only as it currently stands. If you see the Rangers go beneath that minus 150, immediately pick LA across the board. Immediately pick LA if you see the Rangers go beneath minus 150. If they go to minus 145, minus 142, 44, pick the Angels in this one. All right, Diamondbacks versus Padres. All right, plus 116 for the Arizona Diamondbacks on the money line, minus 134 in favor of the Padres on the money line. Plus 1.5 for Arizona at minus 184 cost. Minus 1.5 for the Padres at plus 152 cost. Over under is at 8.5 plus 100. For the over, under is at minus 122. Now, not a massive favorite of the Padres at home, but we're going to focus on this minus 184 run line for the underdog Diamondbacks. Let's scroll down a bit. Now, 26% in favor of Arizona, 74% of the money in favor of San Diego at home, that is on the money line. Only 26% in favor of Arizona on the money, 52% in favor of Arizona on that run line. If that holds up for sure, 52% at this minus 184 cost, there's almost no way Arizona at least doesn't get the run line in this one. That's a very high total, and they're getting most of the money. Now, people putting heavy money on Arizona, they're only getting 20% of the betting, though. It's 52% of the money on the run line. Just keep that in mind. Now, San Diego's getting 74% of the money on the money line. I would actually, join the public and go with the Padres at home, Arizona on the run line, and this over is getting 72 and 74%, 72% of the betting, 74% of the money at that plus 100. Under is getting that minus 122, and it's not getting most of the money either. So I would go with the over. Join the public and go with the over in this one. Basically, join the public in this game in all three categories. Join the public in that one. All right, let's see where the next one is. Philadelphia Phillies at the San Francisco Giants, minus 142 for the Phillies on the money line, plus 120 on the money line for the San Francisco Giants, minus 1.5 on the run line at plus 126 cost, plus 1.5 run line at minus 152 or 162. Okay, 152 on for the Giants at home. Over under is at 7, the lowest of the day at minus 110 cost. Let's see where the money is going in this one. 63% in favor of the money in favor of the Phillies on the road. 69% of the betting in favor of the Phillies on the money line on the road. 73% in favor of the Phillies on the run line betting. 85% of the money in favor of the Phillies on the run line. Over is dominating, and naturally. Over 79% of the betting, 74% of the money. I will challenge that and go with that under. They're not giving you anything to go by with that minus 110 even total, even cost, that is. So I would challenge that and go with the under. I would fade the public in that one. Now, minus 142 for the Phillies. Minus 142 at this minus 152. So they're above that minus 150 threshold. Only if that holds up, I'm going with San Francisco. Only if that holds up, I'm going with San Francisco on the run line. They're only getting 37% of the money on the money line, though. At this plus 120. The only way I would consider going with San Francisco across the board, if only this drops, the amount of money being put on them drops. Let's say this turns into 31%, which is where the betting is, somewhere around 30%. I would go with San Francisco across the board. Strongly consider going with San Francisco across the board. But the 63% of the money, and this is increasing, by the way, minus 142. Minus 142, that has dropped, actually. It was minus 144 about an hour ago, so it is dropping, which means I'm leaning toward going with San Francisco on the money line. But as it currently stands, I'm going with the Phillies. Only as it currently stands. Over is getting 7, minus 110 cost going over, minus 110 cost going under. Challenge that and go with that under. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Pray every day. Join the Patreon. Link is in the description and in the video. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. You guys take care. And yeah, pray every day.